All right. Well, good morning, everyone. So my name is Paveng. I'm one of the academic advisor in the School of Engineering. This morning, we have the mechanical engineering panel. You will have the opportunity to hear from a faculty, Professor Venkat, and two students, Ethan Merced and Justin Zepeda, regarding their experience at UC Merced and the ME major. There are questions prepared ahead already. However, you have the opportunity to ask your questions. You may use the Q&A to submit a question. As a reminder, this event will be recorded. Also, for attending this event, you can enter your name for the raffle prize. A link will be provided toward the end, so please make sure to click and fill in your information. I will now have the panelists introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Venkat Ayaswamy, and I'm an associate professor in mechanical engineering. I'm also the undergraduate chair, which is why I'm representing the department in this important event. I teach fluid mechanics, aerodynamics, all of those fluids related classes. You will probably have to take fluids at some point. So you may see me in that class if you take it in the spring semester. But the other classes that I teach are technical electives. So you could choose to or not take them, but you will definitely see me in the fluids classes. Those are the classes I teach. I also do research, and my research is in computational plasmas. So if I have to go ahead and describe plasmas in a few sentences, plasma is something that's pretty much covers most of the universe except the planet that we live in, which is Earth, of course. The sun is a plasma. Stars are all plasmas. If you are sitting in a room and you probably look up and you have a CFL bulb, that is a plasma. So there are a whole host of plasmas. But we kind of study plasmas for specific applications. Some of my interests are in plasma-based electronic components. So think about a plasma-based electrical component like a capacitor or a resistor, things like that, or an antenna for communication. So those are some of my interests. I also do a little bit of plasma agriculture, where we are trying to use plasmas to deliver nutrients to plants, instead of using solid fertilizers. We have a few other applications, but that's in general my research area. We do a combination of both computational stuff as well as some experiments, especially for the plasma agriculture part. I can go on and on about plasmas, but I will stop there and let the other panelists introduce themselves.
I can go. So, hey everyone, my name is Justin Zepeda. I'm a fourth year mechanical engineering major. I'm currently a part of two really amazing organizations, both Vanguard Engineering Society, that deals more with like leadership, and SHIP at UC Merced, which I am the Vanguard representative. So I kind of like to say like those two positions go hand in hand with each other, because my goal is constantly to uplift both organizations in any way that I can.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Merced. I'm a fifth-year mechanical engineering student. Going off what Justin said, I'm involved with Vanguard as well. I'm the president. I'm also involved heavily with the aerospace organization on campus here at AA. And I'm also in the Air Force Reserve, part-time. And yeah, so I'm excited to hear your questions. Feel free to ask anything.
All right, and just as a reminder to students, I will have questions already asked, and then if you have any questions, please use the Q&A to submit your questions. So for the panelists, can you tell a little bit why you choose to teach or attend UC Merced?
So I started in UC Merced, and now it's, I could say, way back. I started in 2014, so it's been 7 years now. So UC Merced was a much smaller campus at that point in time. So when I was applying for faculty positions in different schools, I will be honest and say I did not know about UC Merced. I knew about most of the other campuses of the UC system, but I did not know about UC Merced. But when I came here to interview, I was quite pleasantly surprised by what was in there. Merced is a small town, but to start a new campus is not a simple feat. Okay, that you can see that there are no new universities coming up in the recent past, and we are one of the few. So that opportunity kind of triggered me. It was something that was growing, and I could definitely play a very major role in shaping a university. That is an opportunity that most people will not get, just because there are few universities coming up, right? And now you see Merced itself has become a little bit older. So I'm talking about 7 years back. We were a real fledgling campus at that point in time. We did not have a lot of the buildings that are there today, but the opportunity to grow with the campus, I think that was really the one major factor that had me coming to UC Merced. And of course, I went to grad school in Indiana, and I did not like the winter, so I was really looking forward to moving to California or someplace similar. So that helped as well.
I'll go ahead and kind of add on to what Professor Venkat said. And from a student's perspective, it's kind of the same. When I, first heard of UC Merced, I was not familiar. I had heard of it because I knew it was a new UC, but I had never visited it. I had never seen the campus. And when I did finally see it, it was small, but what it had to offer, I think I saw. And I liked what the professor said about wanting to grow with the university. I think that was my initial thoughts as well, that when I started as a freshman, I don't know how it's going to be when I'm a senior, when I'm graduating. And now that I'm here, I'm very glad that I've been able to attend this university. I'm very glad that I've been able to see, watch it grow. And now it's like twice the size that it was when I first got on campus. But I think just being able to have the small community here, I think I've been able to grow with it and kind of get to know a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing students, and I'm glad that I made the choice to attend here and kind of watch myself succeed and grow.
Yeah, I'll add on to that too. The bigger thing I think for me was financial aid. UC Merced's package was very, very generous. On top of that, the opportunity just to go to school, that was something I really appreciated and that they offered. So I was excited to come up here to Merced. And then I also have a local family here. So I'm from Merced, but I have my brother's godparents up here. My cousin lives here. So I had family in the local area. So that was kind of good for the transition of things. And overall, I always just like being a part of things developing, being there from the beginning, like Professor Venkat and Justin were saying. I like being there in the beginning, or at some point where I can be like, wow, I was a part of that process and its development. So.
All right, thank you, everyone. So going more specifically, can you share more about the ME major department from a faculty perspective as well? And then for students, what did you like most about the ME major that made you choose that major?
So mechanical engineering is one of the biggest departments on campus, both in terms of undergraduate enrollment and graduate enrollment. If you look at the School of Engineering, I think we are next only to the CSE major in terms of undergraduate student enrollment. And we have a pretty big, for the size of our campus, pretty big graduate program. We have about, that number keeps changing. So I'm quickly thinking we probably have like 15, 16 faculty members, which is steady state size for most small departments. So we are growing. We're already quite big, and we are growing. We do and we are playing a very active role in both student teaching as well as research. For example, you may have seen it on the news. One of the things that I want to share, which I think may be cool, is that one of our faculty members, Professor Ashley Martini, who's also the chair of the department, she was involved with research, and on the Mars mission. Her students have contributed a great deal to that mission. We may have done a small part, but I think even small parts play a very big role in such critical missions. So that's one cool thing I want to share about our department. And I'll probably let the students chip in about why they chose the major.
Yeah, I think for me, I was really always interested in things in general, and I wanted to have an understanding of how things were designed, developed, and the concepts that were kept in mind when creating stuff. Right now, I'm taking the class called Components, which is a required class for you guys to take, and it's really just all about. Well, right now we're actually talking about a lot of like the ways parts can fail based on the design and the materials. So it's kind of cool. Just I was always like, I'm kind of curious just how things work in general and how we can design them and design them to fail by accident or intentionally, depending on what circumstances they're in. So that was for me.
I think along with that, for me, I didn't really know exactly what field I wanted to get into, and I felt that mechanical engineering would give me the ability to kind of like learn a lot of different disciplines in the engineering field. You know, I didn't know if I wanted to do like electrical or computer science, and I think as a mechanical engineer, you do, like Ethan said, like, look into more how things work. You know, like tension, stresses. You know, when things can fail. You look into all that. And so for me, it was more wanting to kind of just broaden my field of what I wanted to learn. In terms of like the professors, there's a lot of different classes that you will take, both requirements and as technical electives that kind of grow your interest in just being a mechanical engineer, whether it be, you know, like fluid dynamics, like Professor Venkat teaches, or how you mentioned Professor Martini. She teaches a really cool tribology class that, you know, was one that I thoroughly enjoyed because I had never really heard about the subject. And there's many classes like that, you know, as in the mechanical engineering field that, and at UC Merced that you'll take that kind of just open your eyes in the terms of like scaling of engineering in the mechanical field.
I just want to add on to that and say that mechanical engineers are the mothers of all engineers. It's just such a traditional area. You can branch out so much. I mean, there are very cool, newer programs, but if you're a mechanical engineer, I think you really can branch out to any of those fields. That's just my opinion.
Great, thank you. So that kind of lead into the next questions. What kind of careers can student go into by pursuing an MA degree? And then for the students, what careers do you hope to pursue after you graduate?
Oh, that, you know, I can just build off of what I was discussing, right? So essentially, I think mechanical engineers are required in any industrial job where you have components, like anything that's operating any piece of equipment that's not a human will need mechanical engineers. So there are a whole host of careers mechanical engineers are required in automobile industry, in the semiconductor industry. You may wonder that semiconductor industry is more of electronics, but they need mechanical engineers all the time. And aerospace industry, even agriculture, like that, there's a lot of mechanization happening in agriculture. So as I said, any place where you put an equipment instead of a human, you are going to need mechanical engineers. So robotics, and just to name a few. I mean, you name an industry and you will see that they hire mechanical engineers. Anything where temperatures are involved, like heat transfer is such a traditional mechanical engineering topic. So you will need mechanical engineering expertise to deal with those kind of stuff. So as I said, it is truly the mother of all engineers in that any area will need mechanical engineers as long as there is any device involved. The only thing we don't know to deal with is probably humans.
Yeah, I'm banking off what he said in terms of like the job and industry, and everyone needs mechanical engineers. As I said, I'm a fourth year, so in terms of what I want to do after college, I think that's still also wide open. I don't know what industry I want to go into. Specifically, I'm drawn more to like the renewable technology area, like EV and just solar in general. That would be like ideal if I could be able to work, at a company or in the industry that kind of uh, where I'm able to help kind of curb, carbon emissions, fossil fuels, all that. That's something I really am interested in, and something I would love to work with and just around in general.
Yeah, for me, I'm more interested in aerospace. I've been interested for the longest time. I'm from an aerospace hub down in Palmdale, so Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and NASA. They're all kind of right down the street for me. But if I don't do that, then I'm probably gonna go full time with the Air Force, and we'll see what careers I can do within the Air Force.
All right. So can you can you talk about the classes you teach or have taken so far at UC Merced? So Professor Venkar, for you specifically, why did you choose to teach that specific area, that specific courses for ME? And then students, what are some courses you've enjoyed or found challenging so far at UC Merced?
So as I mentioned earlier, I teach the fluids class, which is ENGR 120. You will definitely take that class for sure. And as I said, if you take it in the spring, it will be with me. My background is in thermofluids, like anything that has to do with fluids, heat transfer, and stuff like that. And when I started, one of the faculty members who was teaching fluids had just left, and obviously there was a void there. I chose to fill in, and I've been teaching that class for a while now. I also teach the aerodynamics class, which is a very popular technical elective. Just like Ethan, a lot of our students are into aerospace, so they like to take that class. I have offered a class that's called air breathing engines. I was able to offer it only once just because it just didn't fit into all of the classes that I was teaching. And that class is about engines that go on airplanes. So jet engines is the topic of that class. So I'm hoping I can start offering it again, because I'm pretty sure that will be popular with students too. I also teach a class on introduction to computational fluid dynamics. You see how fluids is my area of expertise. And then using a computer to solve fluids problems is what the focus of that class is going to be. And I also teach a couple of graduate classes in related topics, but I don't think it's relevant to this discussion here. So, but I also teach computational fluid dynamics at the graduate level as one of my regular classes. I also teach a class on my research, which is plasma. Okay, so these are all the classes I've taught at UC Merced. But again, each of these classes, in my opinion, gives you a very particular skill set, because, for example, the CFD class, if you are joining the industry, you will have to do computer simulations of fluid problems. It just is so inherent in today's design. I'll give you a cool fact. Boeing 787 was completely designed using computer simulations. Okay. Now, what does that mean? You actually don't do experiments. Boeing airplanes of the previous era, there were a lot of experiments. But 787 was completely designed using CFD, but that is not to say they did not do any experiments, but experiments were done later on. But the design process was completely done using computer simulations. Okay, so again, the classes that I choose to teach kind of are those classes which I believe will give students some technical skill that will help them, whether they are pursuing graduate school or whether they're going to the industry and doing a real world job. So those are the kind of classes I like to teach.
then like, again, just to reiterate, you said just like classes that we've taken in general as an undergraduate, Paul?
Yes, so courses you've taken so far that you've either really enjoyed, or you can share about maybe some courses that have been quite challenging for you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, there's classes that all mechanical engineers are going to have to take, whether it be fluid dynamics, components, thermodynamics, heat transfer. Those are all really like core building block classes in the mechanical engineering and just in the field, I think, or just at school. So I've taken all those, and while not super hard, I think they each kind of build upon each other as you go. So maybe it's hard in the beginning, whatever class that you take as a sophomore. I don't know, it varies depending on where you're at, but those classes are I would say they're a little difficult for me, but I kind of just persevered, and it kind of helped me when I got to classes such as like vibrations, ME 140, which is also another, it was kind of hard, I would say, but it kind of builds off of like ME 120. And now as like as a fourth year, I've been able to take more just technical classes with the CFD class with Professor Venkat, which I'm a part of. A class I'm thoroughly enjoying right now also is ME 190, which is fuel cells and battery. And that's another field that it was really interesting to me. And, I'm glad that I'm being able to take it right now, while I'm interested in it before I graduate. Yeah, I think that's in terms of classes that, I like all my classes that I take, but those are kind of just ones that like come off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I'll say the first year that ME 190 class, I'm taking it with Justin this semester. Probably one of the coolest classes, yeah, because I've always been kind of curious about batteries in general and fuel cells. So I always try to look things up, and it's always not as easy to get that information. But in terms of the hardest class for me, transitioning into taking mechanical engineering classes or engineering classes in general would have to be engineering 57, which is statics and dynamics. That was that had to be the change in my life, and how to interpret problems and how to get what you need out of those things. That was probably the hardest class I've taken, and that was just because of the transition process. Once I adapted to that, it definitely made the other classes more realistic. Especially, I'm very good at understanding concepts. Once it comes with the practicality of trying to solve a problem, that's where I have a little bit more difficulty. But concepts is where my strong suit are. So once you get a little bit higher in the classes, if you love the concepts, it kind of gets easier to understand, I think.
Yeah, I take that back. 57 was pretty hard because that was like that's like the first building block class, low key.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So Professor Vinca, we've heard these two students kind of share about some courses that may be challenging. So from a professor faculty side, what general advice would you give for students who may be finding some of these engineering courses challenging, and what can they do to be successful in these courses?
Right. So one of the things, and if I probably said this in last year's panel as well. One of the things that I think is really challenging at all levels is time management, I think. I mean, we have those challenges too. We have a whole bunch of things to do. And as we take on roles and responsibilities, how are we going to fit in all of those responsibilities within those 24 hours of time? Because that time doesn't increase. As students, as you transition from high school to college and first year to sophomore year, I think time management becomes very, very critical. So a lot of, some of you may have jobs that you work on, but make sure you allocate sufficient time for your classes. So that is one of the biggest challenges, and maybe I'll talk about it later on. But for engineering, so this is probably true for all classes. Okay, time management. How many hours do I need to put in to be successful in this class? Because every unit, every hour of lecture you attend, or every 15 minutes of lecture you attend, I think you have to put in 2 hours of work for every unit outside of class, right? So that's kind of the ballpark estimate that we work off of. So homeworks are extremely important. So I tell even in the CFD class that I teach this semester, those are typically like more advanced students ready to graduate and so on, but they still have this time management challenge. So plan ahead, then you should be prepared to put in that effort or that much time into those classes. If you take the time to do the homeworks on your own, I think that's a great preparation for any class. If you're able to do the problems on your own, that's the best way to prepare for the exam. So take your time to do the problems. Engineering classes tend to be a lot more problem oriented. I think both Justin and Ethan mentioned the engineering 57 class. That is probably the first class where there's a lot of engineering problem solving. There will be, I've not taught that class, but there is likely to be no theory question. They'll throw figure after figure at you, and then you will have to solve for various things. What is the force acting at this point? What is the moment acting at this point? A lot of different things. What should be done for the structure to be in equilibrium? All of those things. So they are, the more problems you solve, the more confident and competent you're going to become in those topics. It's just the same thing. Practice makes people perfect. That's just, it's a very old saying, but that still holds true. Especially for problem-oriented classes, you just got to solve as many problems as possible. Your textbooks that typically get assigned for the classes, they'll have a ton of problems. I actually joke that if you're able to solve every single problem in that textbook, then you will get an A+ in the class for sure. Okay. It's probably an overstatement. No one's going to be able to solve every single problem in the textbook. We just don't have that amount of time. But that statement is true, because the more problems you work out, the better you're going to get at it. So take your time to work out all the problems, because most engineering classes are problem solving oriented. Now you have to do the number crunching. And one of the other things that I want to emphasize is it has been a consistent trend with our students. Many of them, I think Ethan mentioned it too, many of them have kind of a, I don't know what to call it, but for the lack of a better word, I would just say maybe an anxiety or a fear of math. Okay. I think that fear will also be overcome the more you practice. The more you practice, you're going to get better at it. Okay. So just take the time, even if you don't seem very confident in doing those problems, the easy way out is to shy away from them. I'm not good at those problems and just prefer doing something else. But I think you have to take on that challenge. If you're not good at it, then try to do it even more. So I know it's very counterintuitive, but if you can get into that mindset, I think you will definitely be successful in the engineering classes.
And then for the students, what are some resources or studying strategy that you've used? So maybe specific resources at UC Merced on campus, or if there's any online resources that have kind of helped you to overcome and pass those challenging courses.
I think for me, I mean, besides the obvious, office hours, so office hours is a good tool. I haven't really used the STEM Center or the Math Center in particular, but YouTube has a lot of content on there that kind of streamlined my process, because I've been very busy. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I can just look this up real quick on YouTube. And then the bigger one, I would have to say, though, is my peers. My peers are a really good resource when I'm trying to ask for help. Study groups, I'm not really a big study group person, but like I always ask my friends for questions, and then we kind of talk about it over homework. So my peers are a really good resource also.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with Ethan, the peers, because I'm sure, I mean, if most of the time, if you're not understanding something, the chances are that, someone in your class is also not understanding it, whatever it may be. So, there's always going to be some type of common ground, like, hey, how did you come to that? How did you come to that answer, that final question, or you could even go back from that, like, well, I didn't get that, like maybe I did somewhere, maybe my math was wrong, or maybe just my conceptual understanding of it was wrong. But being able to kind of like communicate that and with a classmate is a tool that I've used a lot, you know, as my undergraduate. Definitely office hours. I didn't really go to office hours as much as I think I should have, you know, in like my second year or first and second year. And I think I've wanted to take more advantage of that as I've gotten into the more difficult classes. You definitely want to ask the professor or the TA if you're having any confusion, you know, whatsoever, because a lot of the concepts build on each other as classes go on. You know, if you're not understanding something, you'll think like, oh, it's fine, I probably won't see that again in my undergraduate. And there's a high chance that you will see it again in another class, like a little even more confusing, you know, because they build off each other. So definitely just ask questions, you know, whether it be to your TA, to your peers, anything is, you know, if you have a question, no question is stupid, really, you know, if it's the professor or TA or to your peers. It's kind of the understanding of it that's important.
I really love that. I mean, yeah, that's one point where students tend to be like, oh, is this just a dumb question that I don't want to ask? There is no bad question at all. In fact, every question is a good question. The only question is which is a bad question is the question that's never asked. Okay, so ask questions. That is definitely going to help you.
All right, so both Justin and Ethan mentioned about attending the instructors or TA's office hours. So Professor Venkat, what would you expect a student to kind of prepare ahead of time before they come in to meet with you doing office hours?
So I think if they can clearly show what they have done so far, or it could just be, you know, I just don't know how to do this problem. If they can clearly show what they have done and what their question is, that can be very helpful. Because the reason I'm saying this is office hours is a limited amount of time, right? And sometimes we don't have any student, just one or two students. We have a lot of time to spend with that student, but sometimes it can be like 7-8 students at one time. At that point in time, it really helps if the student is organized and clearly communicates his or her question. That way, it's easier for us to quickly help that student and move on to the next student and then come back to the same student. So typically my office hours are like, okay, you ask a question, I give you some pointers, and then move on to the next student. The student can work in my office, and then I come back to that student to see if he or she is progressing in the right direction. So it really helps if you come well prepared with your question. Now, if it's a concept that you don't understand, it's good to come and say, well, it's good to begin with what you know about that concept, because even if you think that you know nothing about that, it's not really true. You know something about it. So if you can clearly articulate your thoughts and communicate that, then we can build off of it during the office hours, as opposed to just coming in without organizing what you have done outside of the office hours. So that's just my only real suggestion about the office hours.
All right, thank you for that. So we've talked a lot about classes. So I'm going to transition a little bit. Professor Venkat mentioned earlier about time management. So, you know, as a student, you're involved in a lot of things. So if you can just share a little bit about how important is it for ME major to be involved on campus, such as student clubs and orgs? So what kind of experience, what kind of skills can they gain from being involved on campus?
That's a great question. I think I think it is really important to kind of be involved, you know, in organizations at UC Merced, or just anywhere really, but at UC Merced specifically. I think a lot of times, you know, if you're confused on specifically if you're confused on classes or anything like that, you know, I think getting to know other engineers and organizations outside of class is kind of builds, a little bit of community, a little bit of just like understanding with each other. And Ethan could talk about this more because he is the president. But for Vanguard specifically, we do more like leadership and just kind of it's time management, but just how to be just like a better leader. And so that's a little bit different from being like on campus or being in school. But it's just kind of another facet of being an all-around engineer, someone who not only is good in the classroom and but someone who's kind of good outside the classroom as well, and can kind of if they have questions, they can kind of take charge. If you're leading like a project or just like a group of people, stuff like that, I think is important because it kind of just helps you build and be an all-around better engineer per se. And like I said as well, I'm a part of SHIP at UC Merced, and it's a more professional based organization. So we do a lot of more like resume, cover letter, and we've also had like a time management workshops before. So those are more just like skills to help you succeed and be an all-around better engineer, but not just an engineer, just like a student and person in general. So I think being a part of clubs or just anything outside of class kind of allows you to just be yourself a little bit and just be a little bit more all-around engineer, I guess.
Yeah, just to go off what Justin was saying, there's three different kind of categories I tend to tell people that ask me how to develop themselves. And first one would be technical skills, pretty valuable. That's tangible to whatever industry you're going to be getting into. The second would be professional. So how you actually present yourselves either on paper or online, and how you actually are able to articulate yourself to a recruiter or through a graduate application. And then the last one being leadership development. So basically your ability to lead teams or just to be, an all-around good person. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's pretty much how it comes down to, and just how you apply that with a team that you're running with. The organizations on campus are pretty good, especially depending which industry you want to get into. For the technical skills, we have at least 6 or 7 different organizations that have different opportunities for you to actually apply what you guys are learning, which is what industry reps are we trying to look for, what hiring managers are looking for. If you're thinking about maybe grad school, those or school organizations are a good opportunity for you to get involved with, but maybe research will be more of your liking since you're going to be going into grad school. Justin mentioned more of the professional development. SHIP is probably one of the biggest professional development organizations on campus. I think right after that, maybe SWE, maybe.
Yeah, SWE's also amazing organization as well.
Yeah, so those two probably are one of the big hitters. And then in terms of technical, probably the aerospace one is probably one of the bigger ones. So AIAA. So it's just about putting you guys in the best position possible to where you're marketable. Because at the end of the day, you're developing your own human capital. And if you look up that verbiage, human capital, basically it's all the different categories that make you a more valuable asset to whatever team you decide on joining. So yeah, you just look for opportunities to develop yourself. That's pretty much at the end of the day. Where you guys can do that is up to you. You can do that through the university or through off campus. Like for example, I volunteer sometimes at the Casa Air Museum. So I have on-site hands-on experience with storing retired military aircraft. So you guys can find that anywhere.
And if I could just jump back, last thing, we did mention a couple organizations, but it's definitely, what fits you and what you're interested in. As MEs, there's also like the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, ASME is on campus. SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers. Those are more like ME classes. They're for everyone, anyone can join. But if you want to gain like experience related to your major, those are more classes kind of that you would lean into. But there's a variety of organizations on campus, so many, and we've just been naming kind of engineering organizations, because we are engineers. But there's so many. If you're interested in something and you look it up, it's probably at UC Merced. It doesn't have to be engineering. It can be just like a video game club, or like Club de Español, or just like, there's so many, those are just some that came off the top of my head. There's so many organizations, and just they're kind of a good way to like meet new people, definitely, and kind of de-stress and kind of get your mind off of like, classes, because at the end of the day, it is hard being an engineer. And I think to be successful, you kind of have to take care of yourself and, meet new people, and stuff like that. So there's engineering organizations, there's, extracurricular organizations, all of that is definitely look into that. And whatever you think fits with you, whatever you think, will be a good opportunity for you, definitely take it.
All right, thank you. So you both mentioned a lot about professional development. And so going along with that in terms of like extracurricular activities and getting those professional skills, right? Professor Venkat, can you talk a little bit more about your research and how might a student be able to obtain research with faculty? And then for the students, share your experience if you've done any internship or any research as well, and how you came about finding those opportunities for yourself.
So first of all, I want to go ahead and say that UC Merced is a very active school when it comes to undergraduate research. All of us, all of the faculty members, not only in ME, in most departments, they work with undergraduate students for research. So we are constantly looking for students who are interested in research. So if you want to get research experience, and it really doesn't have to be only at the higher level. We can work even with freshmen. It just is going to change the scope of the tasks that we typically assign to freshman students, sophomore students, and then junior and senior students. They'll have a slightly advanced task set. But just reach out to the faculty member expressing interest in their research. And I think all of us are very happy to accommodate undergraduate students. So we will typically pair you up with one of our graduate students who can kind of mentor you or give you specific tasks. And then the way it works is the three of us, the graduate student, the undergraduate student, or if multiple undergraduate students are involved, all of them, we all meet together, maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks, depending on each faculty member. And then we will give you specific tasks. It's not going to be a research question. We'll give you tasks that will help you answer some bigger research question that we are working on in our research group. So that's how typically research works. Some areas of research involve experiments and some involve computer simulations. So depending on what category you are in, you will be provided relevant training by the graduate student or the faculty member. So we'll provide you with all the skill set and give you a list of tasks that will be based upon that skill set that we train you on. So that's typically how research works. And many a time it's, people tend to think that you want to do research only if you want to go to grad school. That's really not the case. I think undergraduate research can give you very important skill set that will definitely be useful in securing internships during your school or securing jobs after your school. So because many of us have some ties with certain industry or certain national labs or so on. So we can definitely put you in touch with the right people who are looking for the right skill set. Okay, so I think definitely you make use of the research opportunity because that is very, very useful.
I would say in terms of like communicating and asking a professor, it's how I've done it is just like the professor said, just send an email. If you're interested, don't be don't be shy to just send them an email saying, hey, this is who I am. I'm a third year majoring in this, and I'm really interested in, in your class or in your research. Um, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes professors will say no, they already have maybe too many students, or they're not really looking to take on, or some will say yes, it just depends. But definitely I would say ask early. If it's something that you're interested in and something that like you would want to do research in, maybe don't wait till like, the middle of the semester or after that, because chances are, like I said, the professor might have already gotten students who are interested in it because, you know, like we talked about, research is a big facet of UC Merced on campus. So, a lot of students are trying to do research, and if you're interested, just don't be afraid to ask, I think is something I would say. Don't be afraid to send that email early and just say, hey, I'm interested. Would there be any way we can meet, or even if I can help you just in a small way, you know, that's kind of how you get in your foot in the door that way. Maybe you show that you're a good attentive student, who's responsible, and then maybe the professor will kind of, give you a little bit more workload depending on, if you're like a second year, third year, or fourth year.
Yeah, for my case, I've only done like a semester of research, and I did under Dr. Chen's lab at the Mesa lab. And so I was mostly dealing with drones, and basically we were trying to configure a sensor on there to basically read wind velocities from different angles, because they were trying to find how to detect certain emissions within cities with drones. But and now I got that through actually a very direct source, because I knew the primary undergrad student that was helping with that, and he actually introduced me to the grad student, and by extension, Dr. Chen. So then that's how I was able to get in there for that semester. So networking with friends, good thing. Make sure you do that, because they could be the ones that could potentially connect you with the professor. If you guys are thinking of looking at more official channels, you guys can think about UROC or SURF. Those are two official programs at the university, supports and sponsors. SURF is mostly for the summer, I think, and then UROC is during the year, I think, and then you get paid both in both instances, I believe. And keep in mind, if you do reach out to a professor to do regular research, there's no guarantee that you'll get paid. Understand it. It could be more of a voluntary thing to get you experience. So just keep that in mind based on what your priorities are and what you can afford to do. But regardless, the experience is super valuable, because you are talking to people that are very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and they can at least point you in the right direction to keep you going. So it's a good opportunity regardless.
I just forgot to mention one more thing. So when it comes to what you get in return, of course, apart from the experience and so on, you can also take up to 4 units of ME 195, and typically these can count towards that. So depending on the hours you're going to spend, the professor can give you a certain amount of time, certain amount of units for the research that you're doing.
Thank you for sharing all your experiences. So you all mentioned a lot also about, your social network or your professional network, right? So do you have a mentor? Because I heard that somewhere in there as well. Do you have a mentor? And if yes, how did you find them? And then for Professor Venkat, have you been a mentor to any student? And just what are your kind of expectation in mentoring a student?
So I've not directly mentored individual students, but I've served as the faculty advisor for a number of organizations on campus, including the AAA. I've mentored teams that have participated in, so NASA conducts university design competitions. So I've mentored teams that have participated in those. There's also a design build fly. I think Ethan may be familiar with it. Design build fly. I have been closely involved with those teams in the past, as is Professor Yanchuan Chen. So those are some of the mentoring activities that I have done at UC Merced. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And then for the students, do you have a mentor and how did you find them?
So I don't have a mentor right now. I think I've had, indirectly, I think if you're just like there's been instances where I've taken classes with, someone who was like a fourth year or third year, mostly fourth year, and they are kind of about to graduate. And it's just, that's, like I said, more indirect because you're kind of just, them as like friends. But, I have asked, them like, oh, like, hey, what class did you take? Or like, like, how did you pass that class? It was really hard. And more stuff like that, more indirect. I think I've had a couple just mentors in that regard where people I've gone to class with and I've realized that they're older. And so, I've kind of want to just like pick their brain a little bit. In terms of official mentor, like I said, I haven't, but it's a great way to kind of help you build and kind of help you grow as a student, especially if you're a second year. It's a really amazing experience to find someone who you can kind of just go to for anything that you might have questions on.
Yeah, for me, I haven't had an official mentor in that capacity either. And that's mostly because that's a big time commitment on both ends. So what I've done is made makeshift mentorships out of my peers and out of my faculty members or professional bosses. So like my boss at facilities management, she's probably one of my mentors, and she's always helping me out. And I always ask her questions related to project management. In terms of leadership, a lot of what I apply to my organizations I've learned from her. In regards to fellow peers, I think a little bit of what people think about mentorship is like rigorous, like someone there for you talking, but also mentorship is just about the simple things and guiding you on day-to-day stuff or just giving you advice on something that you're having trouble with. And so I learned a lot of that just from my upperclassmen as I was moving through the university. And so, and a lot of what I learned and I apply to a lot of things I learned from them. So I've had I like to give everybody that I've interacted with that certain level of credit in my development because they've all contributed to what I've done so far in the past and what I will do in the future. So yeah, and then how Professor Banquet was saying, he's also been a mentor for AAA in the large regard of DBF, and I believe in Rockets. I think Rockets has been reaching out to Professor Banquet on that too.
So just to wrap up this discussion, while all of us said that, oh, we have not had official mentors. Oh, I have not officially mentored anyone. I think it doesn't mean we don't do mentorship here. I think it just means that we are doing it in a more informal setting as opposed to giving like a formal label to it. So the attendees should not think that there's no one to mentor them. It's just that it's more of an informal thing. You can just reach out to anyone you want, and there is no like specific formal mentor, and that person is the only person that you can reach out to. So it's almost like you have plenty of mentors. Just take advice from anyone you trust. I think that's all matters here.
All right, thank you all so much for that. So as a last question, what are some advice you would like to give to students that are specifically starting their second year? And maybe anything else that we haven't covered so far if you want to add.
So I'll keep it simple here. I think we have spoken enough, again, trying to give you as much information as possible. So I would say don't get overwhelmed. I think, at about this point in the semester is when all the classes start getting a little bit overwhelming. I think starting from like late September to right about Thanksgiving is kind of the peak season of the semester. So things can get very overwhelming. Just hang in there. And it's not just for the semester. for every semester. Just hang in there, manage your time well, take the homework assignments seriously, do them, work on them, take help from your peers in the class, take help from the professors. Just keep plugging away. And I think and don't hesitate to ask questions if you just don't understand something, because as we were discussing, it may seem like, oh, it's okay, I just don't get it now, but it may come back to bite you. So never procrastinate, any of these asking question stuff. Don't worry about asking any question. Any question is a good question as long as it's asked. Okay, so I'll keep it simple. Think about all that we have spoken during this hour-long panel, and just keep putting in your effort. I think typically I mean, some students are hard work never fails. Okay, so sometimes you could be like, oh no, that student is very smart, I cannot replicate what he or she is doing. But I think hard work can make up for anything. If you just work hard, success will always be there. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I'll say ditto to everything Professor Venkat said. And then just the final thing, which Professor Venkat did mention earlier, is make a schedule, make a regimen, stick to it. Keep in mind your physical, mental health. Make sure you're good. And honestly, break down your day as best as possible, but understand to be flexible depending on whatever comes up. And then try to find things that you know you have to do, things you want to do, and things that you think will for sure develop you as you move along through your college career. And try to find that balance. It's hard, but you do find that balance eventually. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, so much great advice already. I think definitely there's, don't think that you're all alone. There's resources out there for you in every facet at the school, whether it be your peers, whether it be your advisor, faculty, anything. There's always someone there, like, ask if you have questions, go ahead, write to them. There's resources that you see Merced. I know we didn't really talk about like the Math Tutor Center, the STEM Center, but those are also resources if you're ever having difficulty with just like work in general, or you feel like you can't do it. Yeah, and just don't give up. I think at some point or another, every engineer feels like they're not cut out to be an engineer. Like, I know for sure I've had that at some point. Like, am I really doing this? Can I really do this? The answer is always yes. And the fact that you're already here in your second year, you're already moving along, and you're gonna ask yourself this question again, like in your third or fourth year, and you're gonna be like, well, I'm already almost done. So of course I'm cut out to be an engineer. It's just, don't give up. There's always resources there, and just, if you have questions, always ask and always reach out.
So on this note, I just want to, it's more of a curiosity question. I think it may be useful for the attendees here. I know you mentioned about the Math Center and the STEM Center, but is there tutoring for all classes, or how does it typically work? Like, because I know for most of the math classes there is tutoring available, but if you're in, say, statics and dynamics, is there like tutoring available for that? Because I know that there's office hours, there's fellow peers, but sometimes a formal tutoring session student may just like it. But I don't know the answer to this. I'm kind of throwing this question out just for me to know, and maybe it's going to be useful for this recording as well.
So I can answer that questions for the students. So the STEM Center, currently at the moment, they do offer tutoring for lower division CSE courses. The goal is to expand tutoring to lower division engineering student courses. They are looking for a lot of tutors. So for those students who, if you've done extremely well in a course, I would say I will encourage you all to reach out to the STEM Resource Center and talk to Patia, who's the director for the STEM Center. And that way, we can definitely, that way there's more tutor in different, different subjects that can be able to provide these kind of tutorings for students in different majors as well.
So can professors nominate students who could be good tutors to the STEM Center, or
Sure, that is something, Professor Baker. I can definitely send you more information, and then that way you can share the information with that specific student, and they can definitely reach out to the STEM Center if they're interested in becoming tutor for a specific subject.
okay, and or do they like do they get paid, or do they get something in return? How does it work for them to be a tutor, or is it?
For the STEM tutors, STEM resource center tutors, they do get paid. So they will have to go through a formal interview process to get the position as well.
Got it. Okay. So I think that's very useful, because as you said, I think it looks like you guys are looking for expansion into lower division classes, and we just didn't know who to reach out to. So yeah, so I will definitely reach out to you. And yeah, maybe even nominate students who did well in the class.
All right, well, this will be concluding the mechanical engineering panel. I want to say a big thank you to the panelists for giving their time to just share their experience and providing more information regarding the ME major as well. Thank you to all the attendees as well. As a reminder, this panel section is recorded and will be shared on the Engineering Advising website. For all the attendees, please make sure to enter our raffle using the link provided in the chat. All right, and that's it, everyone. Thank you all for coming. You all have a great day.